Hi, I'm Pamela Rucker, an instructor for Harvard Professional Development. I focus on coaching executives in the areas of leadership, strategy, and innovation. Welcome to Leading with Passion, a series honoring innovative small business leaders using their unique capabilities to improve people's lives. Today, I'm joined by Radha Ramaswami Basu, founder and CEO of iMerit, a leading artificial intelligence data solutions company. Radha is widely recognized as a leading global technology entrepreneur and mentor and an early pioneer in the development of the Indian software industry. Radha, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
You were talking earlier and you said to me that you attended an all-male school in a time when women weren't really expected to do that. Can you tell me a little bit about your background, your childhood, and how you got interested in engineering work in general?
So I'm from the southern part of India. I'm Tamil. That's the Ramaswamy in my name. And I went to an all-girls school run by Irish Catholic nuns. And while I was there, got my family is very much, my father especially, believed in math education for women, certainly not engineering. And I got interested very much in the application of these sciences. And I said, oh, what's the best way to do this? Engineering. And one of the things is when you don't know what you're going to get into, it's easier to take that risk. And so I was like, I'm going to join engineering. And I applied. Nobody at home knew that I had applied into engineering. It's a bit of a funny story because the way they found out is my name came in the newspapers and my picture. And it was because I was the first woman to be in the top of the class that was, was tested. And we hid the paper from my dad because I knew he'd be really concerned, and ended up in I would say pretty much all boys, from an all girls to an almost all boys, 2,780 boys, and they were boys, and 17 girls.
Wow.
Would you call it an all boys?
That's an all
yes,
boys
that would
school.
be an all
So
boys.
you go from an all girls Catholic school to an all boys school. How did you respond to actually being dropped in that environment?
In the beginning, it was sort of, you talk about culture shocks. This was a culture shock in the very city I grew up in. It was a culture shock. I think that initial 2 years, bunch of 2 years, was really important for me in the kind of the founding of my brain, my attitudes and stuff. Because my best friends were young fellas in the school who became very naturally, it wasn't even acceptance anymore. I looked forward to this. And I looked forward to being female and using kind of my female wiles, if you want to call it that, in being able to operate in that environment and having the support and the nurturing and encouragement of my classmates. A few of them, in fact, turned out to be almost all my friends were boys except a couple of girls.
And it's interesting that you say that these were people that you became a lifelong friends with. You got comfortable talking to them early on in life, because we know from research that one of the things that happens with women is we might be equal to or better than men in a lot of leadership areas, but one of them is we struggle in our network. And that affects how we see things, how we might lead with strategy. And so at an early age, being dropped into an environment where you were in a male-saturated environment and having that network clearly built your confidence in being able to speak to rooms full of men. So that's probably something you saw yourself drawing on as you even moved throughout your career.
Absolutely. I think it's a very good point you make. It became natural. So I don't think anymore. When people say, you're in a room full of men, I was like, oh yeah, that room was full of men, But it was something I got used to. And when it becomes natural, then you can build your passions on top of that. And you're not always thinking about how am I going to do it. It's just something that you do.
Yeah.
And it happens.
It happens.
And it also allows, I think, very important, and I do this a lot when I'm doing the mentoring, is to say, feel comfortable
Yes.
in being in a room
Yes.
full of men, half of men, full of women. That's the way the world is.
Yes.
And feel comfortable in it and feel confident in
Yeah.
it. And so that definitely came out of my college environment.
What you're talking about is this idea of collaboration. And one of my favorite definitions talks about collaboration being a natural byproduct of people who are mildly obsessed. That it's not necessarily that I'm forcing the collaboration, but there's something I'm so obsessed about doing that I naturally reach out to you because I think you can help me. So now we're adding to this theme that I'm not like anyone else. I'm going for my dreams and taking some risk. I'm learning to network and collaborate. All of these things that are building up toward what you're going to do later. But this is all back in India, right? So how do you get to the US to start doing what you're doing?
Another little battle or major battle. And I laugh about it now because I think back on it with so much affection. And I really, really thank my family, my parents, my older sisters, my brothers-in-law, and everybody for just putting up with this girl who did everything that young Indian ladies don't do. So I came out of this and I heard a talk by a very, very well-known person, in fact, who later became my thesis advisor, Dr. George Becky, about medical electronics. And electronics and communications had just kind of started. It was becoming effective. And he talked about the applications of electronics in medicine.
Okay.
I was like, that sounds really good, and that's what I want to do. But there was nowhere I could do that in India. So it's like, oh, okay, I will get my master's and I will go to the university that Dr. George Becky is in. What university is that? Oh, University of Southern California in Los Angeles. And I was like, yeah, that's where I'm going. I'm going to California. And my father was like, what?
Yeah.
Okay, I have very proud of you for having gotten through engineering. You've done really well. Now get married and go. I said, who am I going to get married to? He said, well, you know, arranged marriages in India, those work very well. I'm like, me? Arranged marriage? Even my dad thought, no, I don't know. I don't know about this poor guy. I'm going to arrange. I persisted, and he said, okay, I'm not going to help you. You needed help to get passports and stuff.
Yeah.
So I went and got my passport.
Wow.
And I was like, I have my passport here. They came in for the police check, and my mother told them I was a good girl. And I think police were like, she's getting a passport without her father,
Yeah.
you know, sponsoring it. And so I got my passport. Then I got an assistantship, and I was like, I really want to go. I really want to go. And finally, he said, do what you want.
Do what you want.
And I am convinced now, it didn't seem that way, Pamela, but I'm convinced now that that rings in my ears, in my head. Do what you want. Do what you want. He meant it in a different way, but that kind of became a little mantra. So I told my mom, I'm going to go. I'm going to do this. And my mom was like, be really careful. She was so good, such a strong proponent, had not finished high school. Such a strong proponent and believed in me, but was also worried. So I ended up in the US. At that time, you could only, the government of India just allowed $8 because it was a foreign exchange crisis. And I was like, $8, I'll be fine because I have an assistantship. Little did I know that in the US, this is part of cultural differences. You have to get a Social Security number, and then it takes 30 days. So it's like 40, 50 days before I got my first paycheck.
Oof.
$8.
Oof.
$8
for 50 days.
But I had, except for the first couple of days, I had a room in the dorm, in the graduate students' dorm. But then I had to get through food and all of those things,
So what did you do?
So again, some learnings that really help in today's world, and in starting companies and things like that, because when you have a young company, you kind of make do, you do everything, right? And you know how to conserve that stuff and make the best use of your funds.
Yes, absolutely.
You're not going to fritter it away.
Right.
And so I took the $8, and my first experience was going from the hotel to the university.
Okay.
I got on the bus, and he said something, and threw me off. I didn't understand what he said on the next stop. Then I got on again, and later I realized he said dime. And I know what a dime was. He threw me off, and then somebody told me that he was asking you for a dime.
Okay.
But I had done this 3 times, and I was like, I'm 4 stops to the university. I'm almost there. And I got through without paying a dime.
Right.
And leave alone 3 dimes.
Right.
And so I came back the same way. I went to university next day, did not pay a penny to get to the university and back for 3 days.
Each time getting put off and then
It
coming
just
back.
put off. Okay, it took a tad bit longer than I wanted it to, but I had time on my hands.
You got where you were going.
I got where I was going.
Yeah.
It was free.
Yeah.
I got free rides.
Wow.
And I felt very good. The hotel I stayed in, that was quite an experience. That's where I think you have to know how far you take the risk in doing.
Yeah.
It was Figueroa Hotel, downtown Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And I felt very unsafe. And then I had stuff against the door. But I'll tell you, many years later, the beauty of it, and this is the beauty of life, when you kind of just go where you want.
Yeah.
I took a company public on NASDAQ, a tech company. And one of my first investor meetings, I think was in LA, the first investor meeting in LA. I was in this huge multi-story building. I think it was on the 27th floor. And I think it was T. Rowe Price, if I remember right. I looked down, I kid you not, and here was the Figueroa Hotel.
Oh.
And Pamela, my heart I was taking a company public on NASDAQ.
Look how far you've come.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I remember you. And I thought to myself, and sometimes you have to look at these things and say, all these hardships, that they give you something in life. And and it turns into, the lemonade that you're looking at, the gold that you're looking for.
Yeah.
And I don't mean wealth alone, but the gold you're looking for. And I thought to myself, you were the first place, Figueroa Hotel.
Yeah.
Without you, I would not be here.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times we forget that, right?
Yeah.
That some of the hardships we go through are designing capabilities in us that we're going to need to leverage later on. I heard you talk about this earlier. Not just did you have to figure out how to get to school and where to live, you had to figure out how to eat. And you had a cool story about how you figured out how to eat as well. All of these things, I think, built capabilities in you when you were dropped into a place and you don't know where you're going and you have to make it work. And the thing that stands out to me, particularly as you think about the company you lead with AI, is that's where we are right now. We all feel like Radha getting off the plane. Like, I don't know where I am. You hear everyone talking about it, everyone saying you should do something with it, but I can't find my way. I need someone to help me. And, I love the story about someone asking for a dime and you don't know what a dime is. Right? We often feel like that people are asking for things. I don't know what it is. I need someone to tell me. I need someone to show me the way. And so I don't know if you knew that was a gift you had in your life back then, but clearly you saw it repeating itself over and over and over again until now you're helping people do this with AI, right? How do you go from the student on the bus to the company that's now trying to leverage AI? What kind of stops did you make in between, and how did you sort of leverage those capabilities again and again?
Student on the bus. I like that. The student on the bus learned about the little engine that could. And you go forward.
Yeah.
And I learned about how to, I know this sounds quirky and it sounds like, oh, she's so great. No, it's not. Like, look at barriers and say, okay, how am I going to break you?
Yeah.
No food. Or just $8 to get by. By the time I knew by the 3rd day, I needed it for 50, 60 days.
Yeah.
Like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
So I went around in the university.
Yeah.
And one of the first times I learned about, the importance of technology.
Yeah.
I went in, used the technology to find out where the orientations of different departments of the university were.
Yeah.
I created the equivalent of my spreadsheet. We didn't have Google Sheets then. A spreadsheet, no Excel. And I said, okay, for this, I will go for lunch to this place. And every time I learned about new people, they learned about me.
Yeah.
And the networking happened.
Yes.
And I got free food and I learned about doggy bags. Only in the US do we have doggy bags.
Right.
Well, I was the doggy that took the bag
Right,
home.
right.
But also, I think it really is important because you set the tone,
Yeah.
and we created a program around it for
Yeah.
international students, many
Yeah.
of whom who came without much money.
Yeah.
And we created this way of international students interacting with departments, not
Yeah.
just their own department, being
Yeah.
part of the whole cosmopolitan nature of the university.
Yeah.
And they got free food.
Yeah.
And from the next year onwards, that's how we welcomed international
Yeah.
students. I became the president of the International Students Union. I was like, okay, now we have a program.
Yeah.
I bring that up because so much of that, so from that point onwards, technology became an absolute harbinger of everything I did.
Yeah.
And I got my master's. Then I joined HP Labs. HP Labs was sort of the crucible of all technology then,
Yeah.
because it was the first created in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
And there were doyens of technology, Bill Hewlett and Dave Packard,
Yeah.
who actually ran the company. How
Yeah.
fortunate is that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you saw things spring up, and you saw what entrepreneurship is about.
Yeah.
And I learned from that. I grew up in the old HP,
Yeah.
and I spent 20 years there.
Yeah.
It also helped me when I was in technology to look at the business side. So it was in ultrasound imaging. I developed transducers and technologies around that. And it was the beginning of the imaging business. There
Yeah.
was no business at that time.
Yeah.
And I learned how to start the business. So I said, oh, we have to sell it, they said. So I said, okay, I'll go into sales. They look at me like, are you crazy? You're an Indian girl. You want to go into sales? There are not
Yeah.
that many women in sales.
Yeah.
And we only have an opening in the southern sales region of the United States. Now you picture that, Indian girl, southern sales region. But then you learn about business. I would go into the doctors, the hospitals. I learned more about those products and those technologies
Yeah.
and their utilization, and absolutely has helped me
Yeah.
till now.
Yeah.
So we use something at iMerit now, which I'll talk about, called the 3 T's.
Yes.
Technology, talent, and technique.
Mm-hmm.
And in AI, bringing those three together in the fusion is so critical.
Yeah.
We'll talk more about that.
Yeah.
But I learned that right then. We
Yeah.
had the technology, great ultrasound imaging technology, transducers, we had patents and stuff like that. And then you learned the technique of how to do pre-processing, post-processing of images, convolution, deconvolution around a point, all these tech terms.
Yeah.
But then what was the technique in which doctors applied it,
Yeah.
and the talent needed to use these technologies? Because ultrasound was very new and Doppler is very new then.
Yeah.
And then I decided, so I work in the southern sales region. It was quite an experience. They
Yeah.
would say, yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. I'm like, you teach me sales,
Yeah.
and I will teach you ultrasound.
Yeah.
We became the best sales region in the United States.
Oh, wow.
And they were like, yay, this works, You teach us ultrasound.
Yeah.
Sharing, collaborating again.
Yeah.
I knew nothing about sales.
Yeah.
And it's some of the best sales guys and sales manager. And they taught me, and I taught them this.
How do you then go from clearly learning your way around the industry and understanding how it works to more global impact with the work that you're doing, and then also starting things in the Indian software industry? How do you make that migration?
So when we were doing ultrasound imaging in the US and we became the best sales region, I said, you know what? I want to see how this can be globally. And HB was so great in listening to all my crazy ideas and saying, okay, giving me the chance to go do it. Okay, go take the risk.
Yeah.
Okay, go run diagnostic medical in Europe. I landed in Germany.
Yeah.
And there, talk about women. I had German guys working for me, and they were like, a woman
Yeah.
manager?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And that too, an Indian woman. First 6 months were hard.
Yeah.
And then I said, look, do you want to be successful in
Yeah.
medical
Yeah.
diagnostics and
Yeah.
medical products group and in ultrasound?
Yeah.
They're like, yes. I said, then, okay,
Yeah.
listen to me. I'm the expert at it. I designed these things.
Yeah.
And we would start working with the German physicians and then in other parts of Europe. And suddenly I found, here's another thing, Pamela. Sometimes the barrier, you can use your own ways of getting around it, right?
Yeah.
I found like in Italy and Spain, I have to admit, I could talk my way. The sales team and our clients were like, oh my gosh, a woman in engineering,
Yeah,
in technology,
yeah,
leading this.
yeah,
I have to meet her.
yeah,
I would go in. So I kind of used the fact I was female.
yeah,
So I won't say that in a bad way, but you know, we have our strengths.
yeah,
We have our differences.
yeah,
Use them.
yeah,
Use the
yeah,
fact that you're female. Don't hide it.
yeah.
I
Embrace who
always
you
say
are.
this to people.
Yeah.
That's who you are. You're authentic. I'm very female in my ways.
Mm-hmm.
I love being in a male environment. So, okay, I'm going to do this. And I negotiated a big deal in Finland. I kid you not, in a sauna. So I did a lot of these things.
In a lot of environments where you weren't normally expected to be.
And weren't accepted either.
Yeah.
And you use your ways to shape that environment to bring people in. You don't feel bad because you're female. You don't feel bad because there's nobody else like you.
Yeah.
You kind of say, oh,
yeah,
that makes me unique.
But I think this is true not just for female, but even small business owners, right?
Yeah.
That you have to understand that all of your success won't come from the places you expect. You have to figure out what you're going to do if you can't do what you always do to be individually successful. How will you forge new partnerships? How will you work with new people? How will you get things done? And clearly being put into these difficult situations didn't hurt you. It made you more resilient. It made you more likely to use that skill over and over again. And what I love, Radha, is that you also reached back to let other people do it too.
Absolutely.
You know, one of the things I read about you is that you have almost 50% women in your organization, and that's hard to do in any company, much less a tech or AI company. How do you achieve that?
So one thing I would say that came out of this European experience, and then later starting being very early on in the Indian software industry, there was also an opportunity that came out of a plane ride,
Yeah.
is the importance of listening to your client.
Yeah.
And we actually call it in iMerit a maniacal focus on clients. I know that's a strange word, but I learned that one of the ways I was different and could be successful in the business world was the uniqueness that I had, or the difference I had, which could be a setback, but by being absolutely focused on the client.
Yeah.
And not focused on what I was taking forward to them, but understanding their needs, their expectations, and fashioning it towards them. That maniacal focus on client success, client health. I say this to the company, the customer's right even when they're wrong. Remember that, because they know something. You think that's wrong, but they know something about their business and listen carefully.
Yeah.
So I'll just talk about our company now. We have this 2 feet planted firmly on the ground.
Yeah.
A maniacal focus on clients.
Yeah.
We're as competitive as heck, want to win, client health. But when you look at what the client needs, and I'll talk about how AI is changing right now, that, and focus on it.
Right.
And we do it with an inclusive workforce.
Yeah.
And what joins these two things is technology, and the strength of technology that permeates every part of it. In our case, it's AI technology. That is the fundamental premise. So how is our company 50+% women?
Yeah.
And I think I said this to you earlier. I get this asked this all the time. How can a company, an AI tech company, be 50% women?
Yeah.
And I like to look people straight in the eye and say, have you seen the world recently?
Yeah.
We're about 50-50.
Yeah.
We're about 50-50.
Right.
Why in the world, ask yourself the other way, why in the world wouldn't a company be 50-50, especially a tech company forward in AI? Look at what it does for AI. It brings in a huge diversity of views, because what does AI do? AI is training models in the way humans are seen. That's computer vision. Humans have a huge amount of skills and technology in here, in the way you hear, developing an audio AI technology that only has men's voices and white men's voices. It completely fails, and that's the way technology becomes, absolutely goes out, because you have all of these diversities. And the other thing it does is, the other thing about our company is that we are very young. You wouldn't know that looking at me, but the average age of the company is 24.5.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And young people from marginalized, low income, different kinds of backgrounds
Yeah.
who have leaped forward and been trained
Yeah.
in and skilled in tech, in AI.
Yeah.
And they are working in global AI and
Yeah.
labeling, annotation, contributing to models, model operations, things like that.
Yeah.
And now as AI is going into deployment, that's the big thing that's happening.
Yeah.
That deployment is happening and the productionizing.
Yeah.
And I talk about the different applications. It's happening across the world. And you want that diversity to be there.
I want to touch on that diversity a bit because I know you guys started a foundation to help people from marginalized backgrounds get involved in AI. As you said, it's so important to have their voices heard. What made you do that, and how have you been successful with it?
So after I had had quite a long career in technology,
Yeah.
right? I talked about Germany, and then I had this fantastic opportunity to start Hewlett Packard in India in the late 1980s when when there was no technology in India and software in India. Many companies started, and I had started with HP. Well, I came back and I ran a $1.2 billion enterprise solutions business for AI.
Okay.
Developed that.
Yeah.
Then left HP, started a software company, took it public on NASDAQ.
Yeah.
And through that, I realized that, wow, it's really possible to build global companies
Yeah.
when the technologies right from the beginning embrace people, whether it's gender, whether it's young people from different backgrounds, etc.
Yeah.
And I also saw that how IT had changed the face of India, which is where I'm from.
Yeah.
And it had created a middle class that was burgeoning, created so much wealth creation, but it didn't touch young people
Yeah.
from the low income areas,
Yeah.
the eastern part of India.
Yeah.
So we said, my husband was at Cisco, he left Cisco. I had just taken the company public.
Okay.
Not just, we had taken the company public. I sold the enterprise business and was doing well. And he said, I'm going to start a nonprofit foundation.
Okay.
And we're going to help young people leapfrog into digital technologies and into having jobs,
Yeah.
participating in the global
Yeah.
economy.
Yeah.
And that started the Anudeep Foundation, which
Yeah.
has now trained 450,000 young people.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Primarily in India, but also we have centers in New Orleans. We have in other parts of the world, in Bangladesh, in Africa. And it's actually, and there's spawned out of it, a prosthetics, 3D printed prosthetic, low-cost prosthetics called Vispala.
Yeah.
That helps with low-cost prosthetics for
Yeah.
people. Lots happen.
Yeah.
I took a small subset of them, only 70, especially young women who couldn't leave and go get jobs, very bright. And I just leapfrog trained them in AI.
Wow.
And I shouldn't say Microsoft helped,
Yeah.
eBay,
Yeah.
and Pierre Omidyar, founder of Omidyar Network, founder of eBay, co-founder, was with the seed investor along with me. And that's how iMerit was formed, iMerit Technologies.
Wow. I love the fact that you're talking about this too, because I believe AI can really help us do things we've never been able to do alone. And training so many people in the future of what this could mean will really help us move forward in terms of what our understanding is of what AI can do and how they might even think about innovating themselves. They don't have to be afraid of the technology. People who are worried about it, I don't think have to be worried about it at all. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think it's, to me, it's more than not being worried about it. They will be the people. See, the thing is, when you have an error, a bug in your labeling of models, it is really the bug of your future in AI. So think about this. We work in autonomous vehicles, some of the leading applications of AI, right? You want the best 3D LiDAR
Yeah.
labeling people, you
Yeah.
will find them
Yeah.
in the women who work for us.
Yeah.
Multi-sensor fusion, medical AI, cancer
Yeah.
cell categorization,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah.
Think about if there is a bug in an accuracy,
Yeah.
how that affects the future of that product.
Yes.
You're
Yeah.
investing in it.
Yeah.
What we do is AI needs the human view, the human application. It's the fusion of robotic fusion and the human intelligence.
human intelligence.
Right? Robotic intelligence and human intelligence
Yes.
fused together.
Yeah. People plus
That
machine.
is
Yeah.
exactly, that is the future of AI.
Yeah.
When we participate in it, we not only are not afraid of it, much beyond that, we see the application of AI
Yeah.
in societal applications.
Yeah.
You clean the internet, any number of things. The safety of cars
Yeah.
on the road, of any kind of transport.
Yeah.
Geospatial for risk insurance.
Yeah.
Flood.
Yeah.
All kinds of things. Natural language processing of museum and library documents.
Wow.
We did some great work for Metropolitan Museum of Art in cataloging all of their AI cataloging of all their work. Imagine that being available to kids all over the world.
All over the world. And you believe this type of human involvement is necessary through the entire life cycle, not just at the end state, right?
Absolutely. You start with it. Now you take AI into deployment. Let me give you an example. Your autonomous vehicles are on the road, or the ADAS, as they call it, advanced driver assist systems.
Yeah.
And it's finding a construction zone or some issue there, or it's finding, when you're doing cancer cell categorization, a new form, a set of people who may have it in a different way.
Yeah.
You have to be involved. In fact, the data in the ML ops is a ton more to work with than even in the model building, because you're deploying it in the real world.
Yeah.
And the anomalies, edge cases, drift monitoring, these are all technological words, but that's where humans come in, and that's where we excel.
Yeah.
So it's technology, the talent, and the technique that I talked about. And that's what brings it together.
I could talk to you about this all day. I
Me
really
too.
enjoy it. This has been amazing. I think the level of insight and impact you have brought is an inspiration for all of us. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Pam, and thank you for your insightful questions. And I think what it does is it kind of naturally brings out the passion of what we're doing.
Oh, it
right?
does.
And
does.
just you're just the way you've asked the question. So thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. You're very welcome.